Now all of us get worried when those temperatures plummet below zero. Not 3 days ago, while I was off to the Leatherhead opening, that's exactly what happened. And I was taken by surprise. My trees were covered in frost. In fact, the trees at Peter Chan's at Herons were also covered in frost. But was that a big risk? Is that going to kill my bonsai? Is that going to kill your bonsai? Well, today we're going to take a deep dive and have a look at the #1 issue that probably will end up in bonsai deaths, especially in our local gardens. So if that's going to interest you, join me. But I also, as a bonus, show you just how charitable Peter Chan is from Herons Bonsai and how he loves to give out free bonsai lessons. That's lots to talk about. Let's get on with it, shall we? Hi, it's Xavier, welcome to a Bonsai Retreat, and it's freezing, but I've actually been putting some wire on this big 4-foot oak. You're going to see a lot more of this in the spring once the growth starts to boom out. But it occurred to me while I was looking at the ends and tips of these, and indeed some of the primary branches that I'm growing out as I put this wire on, what is our biggest concern? What is it the thing that you and I in our gardens, certainly not our nurseries where we've got loads of other things we can use, what is the biggest #1 threat to our bonsai over winter? And of course it's obvious. It's when those temperatures plummet, drop below zero, freezing. And it occurred to me, why is it that for 13 years, 14 years, I've given no thought to protection and the trees have been fine? And then suddenly, a few years ago, something different happened.
Tell me more, tell me more.
And in fact, it was something that happened right across the country, and even some of the big professional growers noticed it. We had an odd winter where we lost quite a number of our Chinese elms, and this one in particular was one that lost the whole top 2/3. And we were all scratching our heads and saying, oh, was it down to summer? Was it down to winter and frost? Some people were saying it's just down to the fact that you didn't care for it, you didn't put it in decent soil. And trying to get to the bottom of this was difficult because there was a lot of debate raging. And I mean, we saw stuff from Corin, we saw stuff from Harry Harrington, indeed from Graham Potter, and a number of other very well experienced bonsai professionals, all saying that their Chinese elms got hit. And the thing that sort of really brought it home to me was what was the difference? What was it that made that winter so bad? And doing a deep dive into it, and again speaking recently to someone from Herons, the answer seemed to be not the fact that the temperatures dropped below zero, and in the UK we're looking at dropping to sort of -5, -6, but actually that we then had an uptake in temperature, exactly like we're getting now. Temperatures now are up 5, 6, 7 degrees. So the tree has gone from being totally frozen and almost protected in that frost to thawed out. Trees getting fooled, they're starting to get a bit of movement in it. And what will be the #1 risk? And what was it that probably did for our Chinese elms? Well, I'm going to hazard a guess. I'm going to turn around and tell you and say it's the risk of another massive drop in temperature so soon after the last one. The tree will get completely confused, will freeze again, and that is, I think, why we start getting some major damage in winter. So it's not the single frost, which we can certainly mitigate for and prepare, and I'm going to show you exactly how we might do that. In fact, I'm going to give you some examples from how Peter Chan does it at Herons, and indeed how I do it. So you need to hang on to see those great tips. But yeah, it's these multiple changes in temperature that seem to cause the biggest risk to our bonsai in our local gardens. So first of all, why is it that the cold causes such damage to our trees? And does it apply to all the trees? I suppose first of all we need to understand that there's one big thing that happens when the temperatures drop to zero. Not only do we get cold, the air gets cold, but things like water change state. In other words, they freeze. I know everyone's putting their hands up and say, tell me something I don't already know. But trees and nature have an absolutely incredible way of mitigating for that. So we see something happening in the autumn which is called winter hardening. And we see all the leaves pulling back nutrients and sugars and stuff. And one of the reasons they do that is because although water freezes at 0, if we've got a more sugary glucosey form of water within our structure, it freezes at a slightly lower temperature, maybe -4, -5. So for a lot of our winter hardy trees, that's exactly what's happening. They're actually lowering the freezing point at which damage can occur to some of the brittle branches that are on the ends of these great clumps of wood. But there are some trees that don't do that, and we know they're the ones where the temperatures never drop below 0. We've got our Mediterranean olives. In some cases we've got our Satsuki azaleas, or we've got trees that are in very, very small pots, our marmays. And those ones we actually need to take a bit of care of. So what is it that's actually happening when this freezing occurs, and why is it so damaging? What is the actual problem? Well, I'd say, apart from the fact that it's freezing cold, there's two big issues. When the water freezes, turns into ice, and you know what it's like, if you put a juice bottle in the freezer of water, when it freezes, often it breaks the lid and it expands. So basically it's a case of as soon as you turn water into ice, it expands. Imagine that on a molecular level, and all those little cells that make up our fine twiggy branches, particularly the twiggy ones, basically blow apart. And that's why we'll often see that in our highly ramified trees, we might see in the spring we've lost a lot of that fine twiggy growth. It doesn't always happen, and there isn't a big rule about it, but it's the expansion and splitting apart of these cells that is the damage that's caused by that. And as I say, if they get some sugars into them as part of that hardening process, that temperature of freezing drops to that -4, -5, sometimes lower. And there's charts and tables you can get on the internet which will show you the various points and temperatures where different trees freeze at. Because again, the same thing applies to the roots in these. They too have what you'd call a winter hardiness or danger level for different frosts. And I would encourage you to go online and find out within your different zonal areas what is your different temperatures where you might encounter risks. So how can we mitigate this? Well, the first thing we can do is get them out of the wind, because the wind itself can be just as much of a problem. Imagine it's freezing cold and we get the Arctic gales rushing across. They too will cause windburn, and they will cause the temperatures to drop further. So wind is the first thing we can mitigate from. And what do we do about wind? Well, we get them down, we get them behind walls, behind fences, and that's exactly what I do in the retreat. And you see here, we've got the protection of the side of the greenhouse. We've got them low, and then we've also got fencing on the right hand side, and they're all nicely down on the ground, and they're bunched up together, and that provides incredible protection and costs absolutely nothing. And surprisingly, many of these did not freeze a week ago. So that's something we can all do. Now, the other thing you can do, and many of us do have cold frames or greenhouses, and I call this a cold frame because it doesn't get heated. But what I have in here is things that may be air layers that haven't taken, or as we've got the example here, little apple, very, very small pot. With some of the Chinese elms, which I know struggled this year, very, very twiggy Japanese maples, that's a choice. Same with a very, very twiggy Chinese elm root on rock. The Mediterranean olives, the weeds are doing very well. And I found again silver birch is another one that I like to protect. I've got here a tree that I wired recently, and again there's a video of that larch being wired. So because it was wired recently, I've got it here in protection, and I find that my Satsuki azaleas also benefit from being in the cold frame. And the temperature here is probably on average not much lower than -10 at the coldest. And just to make it even more winterproof or frostproof, I've got just some bubble wrap, just some extra insulation layers. And again, that's a very, very low cost way of insulating your very, very cold greenhouse. Now, not everyone's got the ability or the space to do a cold frame. We've certainly got walls side of my house here, and for many, many years, that was all I ever did, and truthfully, kept my trees alive. Can I mitigate for that up and down rise in temperature? Well, actually, that's why it's such a risk, because if I have them in the cold frame and I leave them there, the temperatures in there can rise just as quickly, and so we end up doing what we call the Bonsai Shuffle, trying to keep them in the dormant state that they're in. And the reality is, there's no easy fix to that. Now, the other thing I've seen work very, very successfully, and that was down at Herons very, very recently, was the use of shade cloth just over the top of benches, and it was amazing the difference. All the trees around had loads of frost on them. The ones under the shade cloth, absolutely fine. That was enough to stop that damaging frost on the fine twigs. And I keep saying fine twigs because most of the time, if you've got something with a great big trunk, or something like this, which is two trunks going up, the trunks themselves are going to be fine. They've got enough insulation already. It's that very, very fine network of twigs that is often, for bonsai enthusiasts, the things that we're watching out for most. Big, big thing, I'll say it again, get them out of the wind. Now, there is actually a second hazard, which is probably just as prevalent and just as dangerous through the winter months, certainly in the UK climate. And if you guess what it is yet, because if you have, get it down in the comments right now, because we're going to get to that. But first of all, I thought I would share with you the joy I had at being asked to be a part of the opening of the new Leatherhead Bonsai Club. And the reason why I want to share this with you is because it demonstrates the charity and love of bonsai that Peter Chan has of Herons. So let's share some of the tips that he was giving to some of the local new bonsai artists at the Leatherhead Bonsai Club opening day.
No, thank you all for coming, guys. I'm just a bit overwhelmed that you've all came. And hopefully as many of you as possible will be members.
And just to let you know, we've got Jason from YouTube, the Bonsai Garden.
Never heard of him.
From Wakefield.
I've got to wait till to catch it with
We've got
Peter.
Xavier, who's come from Grantham.
Maggie Thatcher country.
Xavier, Bonsai Tree. We've also got Andy, Bonsai Crazy.
Or Crazy Bonsai, as I call it.
We've got Alex. He hasn't got a YouTube channel, but you'll see him on Jason's and Xavier's
Everybody's
YouTube channel.
And of course, Peter Chan.
Peter Chan. And
It speaks for itself.
Okay, before I pick the raffle tickets, I really wish you guys luck. In case one or two people thought this was my club, it's not my club. It is started by Lee and Dave's. I've come to wish them luck in their new venture. Clubs are no longer my scene. I'm a ancient dinosaur, you know. My days are more or less over.
Well, you're fitter than me, so.
I used to be chairman of a huge club back in the early 80s. 80 to 87, I was chairman of the British Bonsai Association, which had 800 members. But there's always room and space for people to meet and make friends and do bonsai in a more personal way. So I do encourage you, those of you who come for the first time, please support the club. I think they deserve every bit of support, Lee and Dave. They're doing a marvelous job. And today I'm coming to give you some of my knowledge for what it's worth. And I've agreed to give people, 5 people, who have never done bonsai before, or have done it and forgot about it. Now, I'm going to pick 5 tickets.
19.
Winner.
Number 4.
Yeah, that's me. He's definitely got no
I'm going to be in real trouble with my wife now.
Number 21.
Oh boy. Thank you.
Very good.
There you go.
And this is the young lady that's made the sausage rolls.
There's no reason why bonsai should be complicated. However complicated a tree may look, it had to start at some insignificant, basic, simple way. Not always, but for the most part, all these twisted shapes are created by wiring. So, if you learn how to wire well, you are well on the way to becoming good at bonsai. If you do it in 20 minutes, you're doing well.
Rob is now getting his masterclass in wiring a pine. Love the hat. So Stephen, how many times have you wired a pine then?
A pine? Never.
Never.
The next thing to do is to take the and wrap it around the trunk tight. I usually go anti-clockwise. It doesn't matter, and it should go all the way to the. Keep it really tight.
So you kind of go past.
Yeah, that's right. The right side is a little not so tight. Yeah, really tight round. Yeah, even tighter than that. Keep going. Yeah. You're doing well. Up to the
Okay. How many of these have you wired before? You have got a good technique. You're definitely good with that hand there. That's a strong grip, Ryan.
Right. The next thing to do, I always refer to it as stirring the pot. I'm going to stir the pot like this sort of action.
So Helen, how many times have you done that with a pine?
0.
That's better than me.
Jewellery.
Oh, well, there you go. So you know all about wire anyway. Are you feeling it, Sue?
Yes,
It's good.
It's quite exciting.
I tell you what, I love wiring trees. It's so much fun. Ryan, what's your inspiration here? What are you thinking of when you bend that wire?
I'm doing it right.
In fact, it is a fungus mushroom. If you smell it, it smells of mushroom. The fungus helps the roots of the tree to grow well.
No, I've been doing bonsai for 16 years, but I'm still learning. So it's not just something.
How big was it? This big.
It's almost like you go fishing. It's like, how big? Oh, yeah.
Whenever someone buys a tree, the first thing they want to do is yank it out of the pot and do all sorts of things to it. Now, if you're fit and healthy, why do you want to cut your stomach open when you're perfectly healthy? Don't do that.
Well, there's people that sell these types like bonsai shows. You'll be able to get something similar. I mean, I've never seen anything this big. But then we have members at the club that they just pick them up from the forest themselves.
And there's a YouTuber in his natural habitat with his camera going into his pocket. It's Jason Hanrahan. Say hello, Jason.
Hello, Jason.
Yeah, see, winter preparation at Herons. The benches are all clear. This is Alex Braunton, winter preparation.
Yeah, just dusted the snow off.
One of the pines there with the and just maybe this is eventually how my old man larch will end up looking if I can actually grow some secondary and tertiary structure on the top. But this is what I'm aiming for. But if you look at what mine looks like now, you can see where it's coming from. Not that I'd seen this tree before, but that's where I want to go with it. And obviously with my collection of maples, all I need is another 30 years and some skill, and I'll be able to make mine look like that too. Well, that was absolutely incredible, and I had a fantastic time down there. Big thanks to to Dave and Lee who were setting this up as a new venture. If you're anywhere near Leatherhead, then certainly you have a look at the website, details in the description. I'm sure you can find out more about this new bonsai club. Peter Chan's fantastic. I think there's definitely going to be a few people there who are going to absolutely adore, who are going to be absolutely over the moon with what he's taught them, and will definitely be mixing the pot in the future. So anyway, what is that second big danger I was talking about? Well, when it's not freezing cold, certainly in the UK, it's definitely raining. And though today the sun is out, I have to beware of not thinking I need to water things every day. In fact, I don't need to put it on a timetable. Sometimes I thought, well, I'll water every week or every 3 weeks in winter. Well, the reality is, the hose came out probably 3 weeks ago. I walk around reasonably regularly just to check the soil, normally with my fingers, and just to check whether or not we've got molds or mosses or anything that's showing extreme damp. Because the one thing we don't want to happen to our trees is, yeah, we've protected the upper stuff from the frost and the damage it can cause, but down below, down in these pots, what we don't want is loads of water pooling in the bottom, rotting our lovely root structure. So that is the number 2 risk. So be careful. Don't assume you have to water. In fact, I can honestly say I probably water 3 or 4 times in total over a 2 to 3 month period over the winter period. So be very, very aware of the risk of root rot. I think the one thing that I do always like finding when I'm doing my look around in winter is those little surprises. And certainly this Chinese quince, which we know will start flowering in the later stage of winter. Oh look, my camera's waving. Hello. And I can see the little flowering buds coming out. What are we? 2nd week of January? By February we're going to have flowers on these quince. Incredible, incredible. These are going to be worth watching in 2025, so if you haven't already subscribed, well, you know what I'm going to ask. Down there somewhere, hit the subscribe, like button, all that sort of blah. So I'm going to just keep on looking around the garden and having a look for damp, any other signs of potential damage, because that's the other thing we need to look at. It's the winter months. We don't go out there looking at our trees. Let's have a look and see, have we had any sort of damage occurring? The birds, the squirrels, all our natural wildlife. Bricks falling from the roof, tiles. Maybe something falling out of the sky, something coming out of low orbit. All things that can cause damage to our trees, we want to watch out for it. I found pots tumbled over. I found birds that actually pulled trees out, and the actual roots of the plant are exposed to the freezing weather. You do need to walk around and keep a look and make sure that there isn't other things that are causing damage to your bonsai in winter. So I suppose that's the 3rd risk. Stay active. Just because it's cold, don't stay indoors. Go outside and have a look around. So, as the frosts return to the garden, as I knew they would, I'm going to continue and have a wander around, see what risks there are, as I've highlighted in this video. Any more work on this is definitely going to stop now until the spring, but I've got the downward slope on the branches. Do you know what? I've looked around the garden already this morning. The frost is over everything, so all that stuff that might have been thawing has again gone down into deep hibernation. And do you know what? Despite all the risks and everything we talk about, what I am going to say to you is it's probably going to be fine. Yes, we may find on some trees, we may find right at the ends, we get buds that don't come out in the spring. But don't worry, there's always buds further back. That's the way of nature. We just keep building each year. That's how cold it is now. If you look at some of the junipers, the berries on them, absolutely blue as, really, really nice. Just wish the juniper itself looked as good as the berries. Anyway, I'm going to crack on with that. But I think truthfully the biggest thing I'm now going to be looking out for is waterlogging and cracked pots. That's really the only thing I'm going to be concerned about. But I am also now going to start doing my research and looking to my preparations for spring, and I've got a fantastic video that'll show you exactly what you need to be considering and thinking about for the upcoming spring. Apart from that, happy bonsai and God bless. Ooh, cheers.